As we mentioned, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is pushing forward to confirm President Trump's eventual Supreme Court nominee. But back in 2016, he argued against filling a vacancy during an election year. Nancy Cortez is on Capitol Hill, where a debate over tradition is heating up.
Good afternoon. Senators who left the Capitol Friday returned to a battlefield today.
I put out a statement.
On the Senate floor, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell vowed to hold a confirmation vote soon.
The Senate has more than sufficient time to process a nomination.
The looming fight could alter the court's balance of power and dictate the fate of the Affordable Care Act and abortion rights.
For hundreds of millions of Americans, this vacancy on the Supreme Court puts everything on the line.
Outside the court, protesters gathered, taking aim at Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham, who will play a key role.
I will be leading the charge to make sure that President Trump's nominee has a hearing.
Campaigning in South Carolina, Graham made no apologies for backing off this promise he made in 2018.
If an opening comes in the last year of President Trump's term, and the primary process has started, we'll wait to the next election.
He said that because Republicans had blocked the nomination of President Obama's Supreme Court pick in early 2016. Here's how they explained it then.
You don't do this in an election year.
Their views on that tradition have now changed.
The president was elected to do this, and the Senate was elected to confirm this nomination.
A new Reuters poll finds that 62% of Americans want the vacancy to be filled by the winner of the presidential election.
Do not be hypocrites and reverse yourself and now jam through in just 43 days before an election where voting has already started in 25 states.
For more, let's bring in Jennifer Haberkorn. She's a congressional reporter for the Los Angeles Times. Hi there, Jennifer. So as we just saw, lawmakers are fighting over a, quote, tradition to not fill a Supreme Court seat during an election year. Explain to us the shift in perspective. How are Republicans justifying voting on a Supreme Court justice this year?
Sure. Republicans are saying that they have every right to fill this seat because the Republican Senate was reelected in 2018 to confirm the end of President Trump's term and any judges that could, any openings that could come up during that time. Of course, Democrats say that there is absolutely no validity to this statement. If you can't confirm a judge at the end of President Obama's term, you shouldn't be able to do one at the end of President Trump's term. I think we're going to continue to see these back and forth statements play out. Republicans feel like they, are on the defensive and do need to defend their record here because Democrats are going to hammer them on hypocrisy up and until there is a vote.
Well, does this push to get a new justice seated quickly, does it suggest that Republicans are worried that they will lose the White House and the Senate?
Definitely. Republicans, the longer this lasts, the longer that they're tagged with this hypocrisy label, the longer something could go wrong. And Republicans do have to think about the risk that they lose the White House and or lose the Senate, because both could be a big problem to confirming more judges. And as we know, we've seen Mitch McConnell say numerous times that one of his top priorities is a Republican judiciary, and a third Supreme Court nominee for President Trump would further move the Supreme Court to the right. And they want to be able to try to do both things to get this nominee through and hang on to this Republican majority in the Senate. Those two goals might come into conflict. There's an argument to be made that pushing this nominee through could hurt their chances to retain the Senate, particularly in a place like Maine, where Susan Collins is already, really under fire there for her vote for Brett Kavanaugh, President Trump's last nominee. Now, if she has to walk around Maine and try to defend Republicans' decision to push another nominee through, that could hurt her chances. And with that could be the entire Republican majority.
Well, President Trump is expected to announce his nomination for the Supreme Court later this week. What happens next year, Jennifer? And how will the fact that we are in an election year impact the process to actually get one confirmed?
Well, Republicans plan to meet tomorrow in their closed-door lunch to start discussing whether and how soon they might be able to move a nominee. As you said, they don't know who that nominee is yet, but they want to start discussing whether they can do it, whether they kind of have the votes in principle for considering a nominee at this point in the calendar. So that discussion is going to move probably very quickly. And if President Trump does name a nominee at the end of the week or the weekend, as he said, I think the Senate would move very quickly. Senator Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said today in a letter that he plans to move for hearings expeditiously, and kind of getting at how difficult this fight might be. The tone of the letter that he wrote to Democrats saying that he was going to move quickly was somewhat bitter, saying, if the shoe were on the other foot, you would do the exact same thing. So it's already setting the tone for what's going to be. It's hard to imagine the next couple of weeks being more contentious than they already were going to, but the Supreme Court battle is definitely going to do that.
Well, Jennifer, as someone who is familiar with how the Senate calendar works, we look at our calendar, we're just about 6 weeks from the election. Is it possible then that we will see a vote before November 3rd?
It's definitely possible. It's in the realm of possibility. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's nomination, in fact, moved in 33 days. Since then, they've typically moved more at a pace about 70 days in between the announcement of a choice and the official notification of the Senate and a final vote. Democrats' goal right now is to push this back as far as they can. But if Republicans have the votes, there's only so much they can do. As you mentioned, it is about 6 weeks away. If Republicans want to move this before the election, and if they have the votes, they could probably do it. But Republicans have to consider, do they hold it before Election Day, or do they wait until after Election Day in that lame duck session of Congress? And I think that's a decision that Republicans are probably going to make in the next coming days or weeks.
Well, until a new justice is seated, the Supreme Court will function with just 8 members. What are some of the challenges that could potentially lie ahead, especially if Chief Justice John Roberts sides with the 3 remaining liberal justices on any upcoming cases?
Definitely, that's a big concern. Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas, pointed out that possibility as a reason that the Senate should move expeditiously on this nomination. He pointed out the possibility that the election, there could be some challenge to the election results that goes to the Supreme Court in a Bush v. Gore type situation. And if you have a 4-4 split, that would be a pretty difficult situation. Of course, Democrats say that in that situation, a lower court would, merely resolve the issue, and that would be the end of it. But Republicans are definitely going to make that case. There's several big cases heading toward the Supreme Court, namely a big challenge to the Affordable Care Act that Democrats are really going to be reminding voters of in the next couple of weeks. That could be a case in which you have an 8-person court deciding the case. And if you already have 4 justices who a lot of court watchers and Democrats assume would vote against the interests of the ACA and another nominee, that would be 5 votes against the ACA in a really high-profile case.
Right, so many potential scenarios here. We will continue to follow all the developments, as I know you will too. Jennifer Haberkorn for us. Jennifer, thank you very much.
Nice to be with you, Elaine.